way to the danger zone. Take a ride into the danger zone. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with our special guest, Tim Davis. This is the podcast where this week, Todd, Matt, and Tim Davis went to see a movie at our local Regal Cinema, and then we're going to talk about it in the parking lot after the movie in Matt's Honda Pilot. Hopefully talking about those important subjects like, should you see this movie? Should you not see this movie? Should you see it in theaters? Should you not see it in theaters? What were our personal feelings about it? And maybe a little trivia along the way, but I don't promise that. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and yes, welcome Tim Davis to another podcast.
Yes, I have returned after the rousing success of the first go-around.
Yes. So, we saw a movie tonight. It was the new sequel. How many years after the fact? 19, 20, 21,
30?
30?
The original is like
30.
Is like 86.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
96, 2000.
Almost 40. 35, basically.
35, 34. Yeah. All right. Many years after the first one. We saw tonight Top Gun Maverick. A bunch of people in this for sure. Tom Cruise returns as Maverick, playing Maverick again. We've got Val Kilmer in this, returning as Ice Man. We've got Ed Harris in this. We've got Jennifer Connelly's in this. And who else? Who else qualifies as famous?
John Hamm.
John Hamm. Okay.
Mr. Madman.
Okay.
And a movie star, I'd say at this point.
Fair enough. Anyone else?
Miles Teller.
Okay.
He's been in a whole bunch of stuff.
All right.
And I think that's it. The guy who played Hangman has been in a whole bunch of stuff too,
Yes.
but I would not say he's like celebrity status for
I didn't
us
know his
too.
name when it came up on the screen.
Yeah, something Powell.
Glenn Powell.
Yeah. I know he's been in some stuff, but I would say the already mentioned people are celebrity
All right.
status.
Okay. What about the guy who plays Rooster?
Miles Teller.
That's Miles Teller.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I was thinking Miles Teller was the other admiral.
Dude. Oh, no. I wouldn't say he's a celebrity, even though he's probably been in a whole bunch of stuff. But
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So that's it for famous people. There's plenty of unknowns and fresh faces in this one. So what's this movie about? Well, if you've seen the first movie, you know about the Top Gun Naval Weapons School or whatever they call it, where pilots go to train in how to dogfight, basically, and how to fly, modern jets. And then they graduate and go off and do fighter pilot things. We saw that in the first movie, so we pick up the storyline 30 years after that, and Maverick has been bouncing around the Navy. He's a captain in the Navy, but he's still flying, and we start out with him as like a test pilot, and he breaks a rule and does a thing, and that's sort of the theme of Top Gun. He breaks a rule and does a thing.
yeah. It's a fair statement.
Yeah, and so that makes someone high up mad, and he gets transferred back to the Top Gun school, where he's going to train some people in how to complete a specific mission against some bad people they're going to start enriching uranium, and they want to blow the whole thing up before the uranium enrichment process starts. But there's this very intricate path that has to be taken with jets flying like 100 feet above the ground through a canyon, and they can't go above a certain height or missiles come, and then they have to fly up over a mountain and then zoom down into the bottom of the mountain and direct hit a portal to destroy the Death Star, and then fly straight up in the air to get out of this pit. And And yeah, so he's going to train basically former Top Gun graduates. They're all back at the school. For some reason, that's where they decide they're going to do it. Probably because the movie's called Top Gun Maverick, that they went back to this place. And in the meantime, he meets up with Jennifer Connelly, who he has met since the first movie or before the first movie. She's not in the first movie.
Only referenced.
Only referenced, right. So I guess they met before the first movie. So there's sort of a love interest thing that develops there, and they talk about the past.
It is actually in his file that he got in trouble for dating an admiral. Like, it's rattled off in the first movie.
Okay. Gotcha. So, he got in trouble for
A dalliance.
a dalliance with an admiral's daughter, and here she is, 30 years later. She owns the bar. Is it the same bar from first movie?
I don't. It definitely isn't as far as like what
Okay.
it looks like, and I'm almost positive it's not like.
Even
the
though they
first-
have a flashback about the
That-
piano.
So
know,
the
made
first
it look
the
like the
first
same
bar, the first bar was like you can see concrete and stuff around. This bar is like on the beach,
Okay.
like directly on the beach.
No, that's true.
So I
That
don't
is
think
true.
they can make those two things connect, even if they really tried.
Right. Maybe it's just the same piano.
Maybe that may be true.
There you go.
All right. So if you know the history of the first Top Gun, you know that Tom Cruise is flying with his buddy Goose, and they're in the Top Gun school, and they have to bail out, and Goose doesn't make it. He dies. Sorry for that spoiler if you haven't seen a movie from 34
30
years ago. But it's sort of important to the plot of this particular movie because one of the people at the Top Gun school who's training happens to be the son of Goose.
Yes.
And so there's some history, some things to work out between the two characters. So you got that. So all that's going on. You do some kind of Top Gun-y school type things. You do some team building, some camaraderie. And then it's time for the mission. And so through a series of events, Tom Cruise's character breaks a rule and does a thing, and
Yep.
is appointed leader of the mission. So he has to fly the mission that he was just training these young puppy pilots for, and he picks his team, and they go and they execute the mission, and there's of course some unexpected things that happen, which I think I'll leave out of my summation. And then everyone lives happily ever after.
I mean, it is a Top Gun movie, so.
Yeah. So that is where I'll leave it from a story standpoint, and we'll go straight to Todd with your thoughts.
Well,
on
thank you for
Top
going
Gun
straight to me.
Maverick.
I feel like I have to put a warning out there that my feelings for this movie are probably going to be like biased because of how much I love the first movie. So I just want to put that warning out there for anyone who's listening. That being said, I really love this movie. From the acting to the the intricate camera work they did and having the actual actors in the fighter jets and stuff like that. You can just to me, it's like a whole nother level of stuff. These people having to act under the pressure of not only being in the jet, but they're actually going not as fast as I think they are making it seem like in the movie, but they are going incredibly fast and being affected by G's while acting scenes in a cockpit. And I think that's pretty next level of acting. And I think everyone did a good job, I think, a phenomenal job. From that aspect, I think this movie deserves really high praise of just the technical expertise it took to do that. From I was reading articles that the actors would be up in the fighter pilot or in the jet with the actual I don't know, driver actually doing the stuff.
Pilot.
Real
Pilot, thank you,
Yes.
yeah. And you know, so they had all these cameras hooked to the plane, and there'd be cameras in the cockpit, and then those people had to direct their own scenes. Like, so they would be like, it'd be like, all right, action in 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, action, and then they would have to like act their scenes and call cut if they like needed to start over, and like, I think that's just incredible for, you know, especially for what we have nowadays, where it's like so much like in Hollywood now, it's just, you know, it's green screen, it's special effects, it's like all that kind of stuff. And there's just something really special about, you know, for all intents and purposes, practical effects. So I'm really high on that. I really dug the story. Like, I think it's a really good continuation of the story, and it's got some great callbacks to the original while expanding on this kind of new dynamic of Maverick, and then, you know, Goose's son, his call sign is Rooster, and, you know, their kind of dynamic, and you find out some stuff from the past that Maverick did that, you know, kind of has driven a rift between them. And I think most things dealing with those two specific actors together, I think, are really good scenes. And I think in general, and I'm trying not to be too biased, but I think in this movie there are scenes that I'm like, this is why Tom Cruise is who he is. Like, and the prolific, you know, actor that he is that, you know, I think a lot of people think of like crazy Tom Cruise and all this kind of stuff, but when he does movies, he does it, he dials it up to 10 every single time, and doesn't phone in a performance, in my opinion. And this is another instance of that, of a lot of acting, and this goes kind of to other people too, a lot of acting through eyes, and a lot of acting through, you can, you know, see them talking through a mask, but otherwise it's like all their emotion for the specific scene in the fighter jets is all carried through just the kind of things you can see through their eyes and the helmets and stuff like that. And yeah, honestly, I can't say enough good things and how I feel about this movie. There are some drawbacks that I think are not huge, but I noticed them. I was joking with you guys after the movie that there are scenes that you can tell that they put Tom Cruise up on a step ladder or something in a box, something like that, because the height differences are way off. But then there's other scenes where they don't, and people tower over him, and it's like, it got a little inconsistent which one they were going to go with for which scene.
How tall do you think Tom Cruise is?
He's like 5'6", I think.
Yeah.
5'5", 5'6". And there's, you know, specifically, I think there's a scene where they have him and Miles Teller on the same eye level, and Miles Teller's like 6 foot,
Had a
if
head
not,
on him.
yeah, if not like more. So, but I think that's just something you're going to get from every Tom Cruise movie.
He thinks about that.
And it's not just Tom Cruise. It's every short actor. That's what they do in Hollywood. So, I remember Antonio Banderas is another one, like, where he's like pretty super short. And so when they have scenes with him, a lot of times he's on something. Not drugs, a box.
Yes.
Maybe drugs too.
Maybe drugs too. I think there are... I don't like that they did not at least mention Kelly McGinnis's character from the first one. Now, I think Kelly McGinnis's character from the first one is the weakest part of that movie. So I was not up in arms that she wasn't coming back for this movie. But I think...
Well, you owe her $5 because her name's Kelly McGillis.
McGillis? Oh,
McGillis.
you're right. It is McGillis. Well, if she wants to come on the podcast and collect $5, I'm okay with that. But yeah, just to not even mention that, like, I mean, it feels like they mentioned almost everything else of the story-wise from the first movie. He's not at Top Gun anymore because he washed out of being a teacher 2 months into doing it. You know,
It's only
Isn't
there
that
for
what she-
2 months.
Is that what she encouraged him to do?
yeah, and I mean, I think knowing the first movie pretty intimately, I think that their relationship never would have worked because she's like career-driven woman,
Right.
like wants to step up, and you know,
He's
one of the
perfect.
whole bases of the first movie is that she's about to accept a job in Washington, and it kind of almost has them split up, but then they come back together in the end. And even as a kid, I was like, I don't think that's gonna last.
Yeah.
So-
So it only lasted 2
Clearly it
months.
didn't.
yeah, he washed out and moved away.
Yeah.
So, should you see this movie in the theater? Absolutely. Like, if you're going to see this movie, this is a movie for the theater, and I think everyone should see this movie. But if you're planning on it, I feel like you really need to see it in the theater. Like, it's not gonna translate super well to home, like, streaming services, I think. I mean, it'll be fine, but you're not gonna get the full experience that we're going for, if your first viewing is at home. So I say see this movie. I say go to the theaters. I say enjoy it. Let yourself have fun. I think it was great. It's not just because I'm such a homer for not only Tom Cruise but Top Gun, but I think it's really good. And, so that's me. Tim Davis, how did you feel about this movie?
I have to say, coming into this, Top Gun was one I'd seen many years ago, maybe even 30 years ago as well. And so my attachment to it was never that high, to be honest. It was I love Tom Cruise, but I never had the attachment for this one like I do for a lot of his other movies. I watched it again recently, and I go, oh yeah, this is definitely a product of the 80s. It's a full-on 80s movie. It's enjoyable, but I kind of leave it at that. This movie, to me, Top Gun Maverick, is a movie in a way of, like, it's just a great movie. You don't even need to see Top Gun 1, and you can enjoy this movie. Does it help to have seen the Top Gun 1? Of course. It informs a lot of stuff, but you don't need to. And this movie just feels like, while I would, like I said, the Top Gun 1 is a product of the 80s so much, this one feels like it could play anytime, anywhere, and be enjoyed. Because it's like everyone has matured who made it, and it's a love letter to the first movie, but it's also enhancing it in almost every possible way that you could, while even revisiting some things. Like the first 2 minutes is almost the exact opening with the same music and the same shots, which is a great way to ease you in, and then it turns modern, and it's just something about it just hooked me from the start. And I noticed this when I watched it again recently, the first one. Tom Cruise hadn't quite become Tom Cruise yet in the first movie, and his acting is just okay. In this movie, like Todd mentioned, he brings this gravitas to Maverick, that, like, Maverick's seen some stuff, and he's not as cocky as he used to be, even though he is one of the best pilots in the world, obviously. And that whole thing with Goose just weighs on him, and Tom gets that through in almost every scene. There's just something hanging over him, and he is able to portray it, and you feel Mav's pain almost, or hesitancy in certain things, and why he's worried for these new cadets, that, like, he doesn't want to be the reason any of them were to have something happen to them. And it just brings so much more maturity to his character, I think, that even though they try to do that at the end of the first movie, I feel it really comes through here. And just in general, like Todd said, with technical expertise part, the flying scenes are fantastic in this movie. The first movie really feels like actors acting with a TV screen behind them, projecting the air behind them, and just shots of them stationary reacting to things. In this movie, you feel like you're right there with them in the cockpit. Things flying by, the camera moving so jerky, like you're in the air. It's just something about it just puts you in it. And I was just, like, enamored with how, like, it just, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, I'm not an air person, but, like, it just was like, wow, this is intense. And, it felt realistic. Like, they dealt with physics and the G-forces and everything that happens when you're flying. So you really felt the stakes of every mission, that something could happen at any moment. And all your military scenes were your standard stuff where you can't do that, you got to do it our way. And, of course, Maverick knows better. And, all that stuff is cliche. But for whatever reason, it works.
Well, he breaks a rule and does some things.
Yeah, he breaks a rule and does some things. But yet you smile. Because in a movie like this, you expect it. And going back to what I said about a love letter to the first movie, this movie itself is like an old-fashioned movie in many ways, where the hero goes through his journey. He's trying to bring up new people that are new faces for the journey. He gets some growth. They get some growth. You have everybody, comes together. You have your happy ending. You have your amazing, intense, climax. Like, everything just is an old-fashioned movie too. And it's something refreshing about that. They didn't try and reinvent the wheel too much, while yet giving you all the marvels and technicality that you can in new movie making, yet still being an old-fashioned movie at its heart. And there's something about it that came through, like not just from Tom, but from like the other actors, the writing, the direction. Like there was a love, kind of passion being made here, and you could tell they really wanted to make this a worthy sequel, not a Hollywood cash in, not some like, hey, we just need to throw a property out there that's going to bring some people in. There was a love in this movie making, and it really translated through. And that's not something you see all the time anymore in the Hollywood that just loves to churn out product for money. And yes, is this going to do that? Of course it is. But there's just something here that is really phenomenal. And I haven't been like this impressed by a movie in a while. So this is going to receive some pretty high marks for me.
All right. Well, it's down to me then.
Yes, it is.
So, I'll say a few things about this movie. One, it had a great, engaging plot. Like, I was hooked in the whole time. I wasn't looking at my watch. I wasn't wondering when it was going to be over. It was pretty much the whole time you were there and engaged and stuff was happening. Quite a few different scenes where they accurately or deftly manufactured tension for you in wondering what was going to happen. So good job there. You guys mentioned Tom Cruise. He's Tom Cruise. He did his job. He did it well. He's obviously excited about this movie and excited to reprise his role, as Maverick. Yes to all the technological marvels and the shooting that happened in the jets. Good stuff. I will say that something that I always appreciate when you have like high speed stuff going on is that there's a certain amount of steadiness so that you can actually focus on what's happening. Yeah, there's some jerky movements, and there needs to be for some of the maneuvers that are going on, but you're never like, I don't even know where I'm looking.
You're not
right
disoriented.
now.
Yes.
Right, you're
You
not
don't feel
disoriented.
like throwing up.
Exactly.
Yes.
Which is different from some movies
Shaky
today.
camera.
Shaky camera.
Correct, for
yes.
shaky effect. Yes, right.
So I appreciated the steadiness of the shots, even through some complicated aerial maneuvers. And the last thing that I'll say is that I just love all the little callbacks to the first movie. That just made it fun. I was planning on watching the first movie, so it would be fresh in my mind. I didn't get to do that, unfortunately. But still, there was enough in the memory banks. You had your beach scene with some athletics going on.
Yep.
You had your bar scene with some singing around the piano. You had, all these little things.
Music was a key.
Musics, yes, they did to great effect, pulling in music from the first movie, and lots of pictures of, the actors, some of the principal actors back in the day when they made the first movie.
Yeah.
Shots from that are on people's walls and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. So I loved this movie. I thought it was great. I think anyone who enjoyed the first movie should definitely see this. Anyone who likes kind of any military, you like some kind of fighting military thing, go see this one. If you like flying movies, this one. And, I think most people will enjoy it and have a good time. Maybe if you're like not feeling great about spending a lot of money on the military or something like that, you might be like, I don't know if this is for me. Certainly a lot of bravado and machismo in this movie, which might turn some people off. But
It's not nearly half as much as the first movie.
that is true. That is true. But I think most people will really enjoy this movie. And if you like the first one, you'll like this one too.
Fair.
Yeah.
Are you two ready for a staggering statistic
Please.
that I learned from watching both movies?
Bring it on.
So, in the original Top Gun, the ratio of fighter pilots shooting down planes versus our planes being shot down is 12-1. We shoot down 12 planes versus our plane that gets shot down. The ratio in this movie, and I don't know if these are real or not, but it's all an even playing field now. And we don't have the most advanced aircraft that's in the sky.
And they made sure to point that out too.
Yeah. And that's just crazy to me if that's true. Like,
it probably is.
We do have the most advanced aircraft still.
Okay.
In this movie, they make the distinction that they had to use these
older
aircraft.
Yeah, you're right.
In order to make this mission work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Fair.
So they were at a disadvantage, even though in real life,
True.
it's.
But we go from a 12-1 ratio to 1-1.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, I don't know. I don't know if anyone's going to find that interesting, but I definitely clocked it in the movie, and I was like, man. So.
I found it interesting, Todd. Thank you for bringing that little trivia.
And it made me think of how the enemies, when they are in this movie, which isn't much, and as usual, just like in the first movie, they're kind of faceless.
Yes.
You know, not
everything's
sure what country
tinted,
not
so
sure
you
what country
cannot
they're
see
from.
the person in the,
but
in the helmet.
they showed some skill that at one point even Maverick's like, whoa, how did they do that? Which I thought was a nice nod to, hey, just because they're the enemy doesn't mean they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So, how many turn and burns would you give this movie?
It's time to turn and burn.
Yeah, time to turn and burn. 0 being the worst because you're not turning or burning, so you probably are dead if you're in a dogfight. 5 being the best because I think that's maximum turn and burnage, and so you're probably shooting other aircraft down instead of being shot down. So let's start with Matt.
I'm gonna go with 4.3 turns and burns. That's a high rating, and I think this movie earns it. There's very little bad that I can say about this movie. It's not. I mean, I guess the one thing, like, it could be even higher if there was like maybe more of a gripping or intense, like, emotional hook in this movie. Don't get me wrong, there is emotional hooks and so forth, but for me to move past like a 4.3 level, you've got to really start bringing some hooks into my heart and start to tear at that. Yeah. So, but 4.3 is excellent. Yes. So Tim, what do you say? How many turns and burns?
That's so funny. Just like with Doctor Strange, I'm very close to where you were at, and my brain was having me land right at about 4.4. I almost went 4.5, which is high for me as well. But I have a couple other Tom Cruise movies that I would put above this. But this, and they would be some of the Mission Impossibles. But this movie was probably my favorite non-Mission Impossible Top Gun action movie Tom has done. So 4.4 is where I lay.
Okay.
Fair. Well, this is a hard one.
Before you reveal, Todd, if you were to spit out your Top Gun rating.
The original?
Yes. Because that might be interesting to compare.
I think the original, I really love that movie, but I can, watching it nowadays, there are some things that don't translate. However, in the capsule of this movie was over 30 years ago.
Correct.
Thinking about the time it came out, certainly thinking about probably the first time that I watched it as a kid.
Yeah.
I'm like probably 4.2. And how I feel about that movie.
So.
Good question, Tim.
Yeah,
Davis.
very good question.
Good question.
So I will say, upon talking about all this, in my opinion, probably the biggest drawback to this movie, and I mean, it's weird to say because I really appreciated the effort they put into it, as far as like who Jennifer Connelly is in this movie and the callback that is, but I kind of feel like I don't know if we absolutely needed a love interest story again.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
And I think it wouldn't have been a big issue if Kelly McGillis, right?
Yes.
Okay. Was not brought back if there just was no love interest in the sense that, like, you know, And you could like this is one of those characters where if there's no love interest in the movie, it makes sense. This is a character who chose military and flying as his life. You know, several times in the movie he's like, I'm a fighter pilot. That's what I am. Why aren't you an admiral? Well, I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the air. Yep. So I think that's a couple of like knocks off a little bit, even though I think they tried hard. But it kind of is tainted to me because they tried hard to make all this work, but they were like, we have to have a love interest, and it has to be a certain degree of good-looking woman, like, you know. And they were like, we can't really bring Kelly McGillis back because she doesn't look like she used to.
So they get the gorgeous Jennifer Connelly,
right? And so there's something a little icky about that to me. But I'm still gonna go pretty high. I think this is gonna be my second highest rated movie we've seen. So I'm at a 4 points. Well, no, this is the third highest rating. Okay. I'm at a 4.7.
I thought that's what you were gonna say.
So,
wow.
Matt, do you remember what my other two highest movies rated are?
No.
If I remember correctly, I believe it's Field of Dreams and
which is an excellent one.
Parasite.
Wow, yeah, that's good company.
I think Parasite might be our highest rated ever.
2 Oscar winners.
There's a possibility that Raiders of the Lost Ark was up there too.
Oh, that's
Didn't we do that movie during
I remember
our
that being high
Netflix
for you
phase?
too.
Yeah, we did.
I remember that being extremely high, but I can't remember the exact number. Parasite, I think, was a 4.8.
Yeah.
Field of Dreams, I think, was like a 4.9.
Yeah.
That is
so. Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, before we wrap up, any last minute thoughts?
No, I'm good. I think we really covered it well here.
Yeah.
We turned and burned.
We did. We turned and burned.
Yeah, I don't think I can emphasize enough when a movie like this comes along that you can really feel the passion in the movie.
Yes,
like,
I brought that up too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm just echoing off what you said. As far as like, you know, nowadays, you know, movies are just spit out, and you know, obviously a lot of times it's an actor collecting a paycheck, it's a director collecting a paycheck, and a studio just saying, push it out, who cares, push it out. And this one's not like that. It just felt like there was so much love in this movie, like and passion, and you know, all the adjectives that can describe this thing.
And we waited a good long time for this movie.
Yeah, and honestly,
so
this is one of these. Yeah. I think this is one of those times where this movie got pushed back so much, and it did not disappoint.
No, they were waiting for the right moment, and I think they picked it.
And I think, and it could have gone the other way too. Like as far as like waited so long, and I was so mad on how long I had to wait and stuff like that. And it could have added to the disappointment of the movie. Be like, wow, this is disappointed, but it's on a whole nother level because I had to wait so long for it.
Yeah.
But it did not. It didn't really disappoint in any aspect, I feel.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with special guest Tim Davis.
Tim Davis.
And we reviewed Top Gun Maverick, the sequel to the original Top Gun. And we gave it an average rating of 4.4 and 2/3 of a turn and burn.
Pretty darn high.
Pretty high. Still not the highest, though.
Yes.
No, but that's up there.
Which I believe is still Parasite.
Well, if anything, I'd probably bring it down.
We both gave Parasite
a third
really
score.
High.
A third score brings it down a little bit.
Well, no, because mine is the lowest.
Oh, yeah,
score.
yours was the lowest.
Yeah, Matt brought it down. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah,
Jeez,
you're
man.
welcome. I'm here to keep it real.
Yeah.
You don't want to sacrifice your artistic
integrity.
I don't want to sacrifice my gut reaction.
That's exactly right.
That's what we get here.
That's what we do here.
But thank you, listeners, for listening, for downloading, for subscribing, for doing all those things.
Yeah. If you see this movie,
And,
what was your...
burn out!
Someone's turning and burning.
Oh my gosh, we got donuts in the parking lot.
Been a while. Perfect timing, really.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
You don't see that every day, for sure.
Now I'm kind of hoping they like burn out and hit a curb or something.
We lost engine one.
Yes. All right. Well, that was exciting. An exciting way to end the podcast.
Man.
Thank you all, listeners, and we'll see you next time.
Da 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 da
Da da
da da da
Da da da.